A flawless scientific asset doesn't guarantee a successful drug. Elegant molecules fail when the science collides with the reality of business. The most common failure point for a growing biotech isn't in the laboratory. It occurs during the transition from proving clinical efficacy to executing a commercial strategy. Your research teams deliver the medical breakthroughs, but the operations side must navigate regulatory frameworks, operational logistics, and market viability. In this phase, survival is dictated by a highly specific metric, learning velocity. While scientists construct the pipeline, your organizational structure must build the enterprise capable of selling it. If that structure cracks, the science dies with it. Learning velocity is the exact distance and the latency between acquiring a new clinical insight and executing a strategic action across the enterprise. To travel from insight to action, data must flow through your people, your technology platforms, and your internal processes. As startups secure funding and scale their headcount, they unintentionally engineer friction into this exact pathway. This friction usually stems from three distinct structural failures: excessive hierarchical depth, founder identity locks, and the misapplication of artificial intelligence. Improving learning velocity means treating your company's internal structure as an engineering problem to be solved, rather than a natural evolution you simply endure. Growing biotechs frequently fall for a specific structural illusion. They equate adding layers of management with corporate maturity. We routinely see companies with only 40 or 50 employees constructing up to 5 separate layers of management. Every layer you insert creates an alignment loop. A clinical insight has to circle through committee reviews before it can progress upward. Furthermore, each of these tiers acts as a mandatory decision gate. The data loses momentum at every lock, forcing the organization to stop and secure approvals sequentially. By the time that insight travels up or sideways through these loops, the original strategic intent is diluted. This slow internal timeline is completely decoupled from external realities. Clinical trial results, scaling requirements, and market dynamics shift daily. Over-indexing on hierarchical depth actively corrupts your data. It strips out the agility required for the C-suite to realize they are failing. To handle this rapid scaling, executives instinctively recruit talent from large, established pharmaceutical companies. These new hires arrive with standard operating procedures designed to govern massive, slow-moving global enterprises. When applied to a 50-person startup, those rigid SOPs freeze operational momentum. They mandate protocols for a scale the company hasn't reached yet. Operational processes must be right-sized to your specific life cycle phase. Otherwise, protective mechanisms become anchors that paralyze the team. Beyond formal organizational charts, we have to look at the informal reality of how work actually gets done. In early-stage biotechs, influence is driven by expert power. Founders are valued for being the smartest scientists in the room. If we map the actual organizational network, tracking who talks to whom to execute a task, the true structure emerges. We consistently find a severe bottleneck. All influence and communication lines aggressively converge on one or two central individuals. This is known as the identity lock. If a founder cannot transition from being the indispensable expert to an enabler of scalable leadership, they end up hoarding every critical decision. The primary warning sign of an identity lock is a sudden influx of outside consultants, paired with a noticeable drop in accountability among your full-time staff. An organization scales exactly as fast as its founders are willing to distribute their authority and abandon the behaviors that originally made them successful. To circumvent these human bottlenecks, the industry is shifting from using basic productivity tools to driving enterprise process efficiency with AI. Organizations are now deploying a digital workforce, autonomous agents managing routine operations and data flows. Managing this requires an unconventional architecture. The digital IT department is increasingly slotted directly underneath human resources. AI agents require identities. They need operational rules, behavioral boundaries, and they need to be corrected when they drift. They function as a parallel workforce. Deploying these agents systematically eliminates the mechanical insight-to-action latency that plagues traditional management tiers. But this creates a new tension. The speed of automated data generation and analysis now outpaces the leadership team's capacity to interpret it. By stripping away operational friction, AI reveals the ultimate constraint: human sense-making. This operational architecture dictates survival on the global stage. In the US market, companies execute with speed, cutting funding within weeks of missed targets. Meanwhile, Chinese firms leverage state incentivization, deep resources, and rapid technical advancement. The Swiss biotech sector counters this with calculated resiliency and a longer-term structural perspective. Competing against these diverse advantages requires an organization to operate at the intersection of people, processes, and technology. Generating massive datasets yields nothing but intellectual inventory. Data is useless if the executive team lacks the structural agility to pivot their commercial model based on those findings. A constant, panicked sense of urgency does not equal high velocity. Leaders have to actively engineer breathing space back into the organizational rhythm. True sense-making requires time to pause, evaluate the data, and deliberate. This requires confronting the fear of failure. If you punish wrong decisions in an inherently volatile environment, your team will default to inaction. As AI optimizes predictable tasks, the unique value of human leadership becomes the ability to take risky, ambiguous decisions in the face of incomplete clinical data. A scientifically sound pipeline is merely a promise. Only an organization with a codified culture, scalable leadership, and relentless learning velocity can translate that science into commercial